pioneering the climate revolution, supporting the climate startup ecosystem in Latin America. In our next panel, we will explore the climate startup ecosystem in Latin America. Let me briefly introduce you to Regina Zurutuza, who will moderate our session. Regina is a partner at 500's Latin American Fund, where she leads the investment and portfolio management teams. She has been part of investment decisions for over 100 companies. Regina will lead this conversation together with an outstanding panel who will share insights on the unique opportunities and obstacles faced by climate-focused ventures and investors in the region. Please help me in welcoming Regina and the rest of the panelists.
Hola, hola a todos. Hello, everyone. Well, thank you for being here. It's so exciting to see all these people here. I just got here, so I hadn't seen the stage, and it's really great to see such a good turnout. We're gonna have this panel in Spanglish. Yeah, mostly English, but some Spanish might go through the cracks. I want to introduce you to our amazing panelists, but I don't want to miss out on any details, so I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves. We're going to be talking about really different aspects on challenges for climate tech startups from different perspectives. We have accelerators, VCs, government-led initiatives, and so we have a very complete set of speakers here. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves. I don't know if Felix, do you want to start on that end?
Well, in English, no? I start in English.
English or Spanish, whichever you prefer.
Welcome to everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Felix Steinberg. I'm a project director from the Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, GIZ, which is a German technical corporation. I'm managing a bilateral project which is called Catalyst. Some of you might already have heard about it or benefiting from it, as I see some participants of our programs. Catalyst is an initiative financed by the German government and the Green Climate Fund, in which we essentially support 90 startups in different phases of their development, and also try to strengthen the ecosystem around them, involving venture capital, involving ESOs, and different support instruments to get these startups to scale their products and services in the market. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix.
Hello, my name is Taiki. I am from JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency. But at the same time, I'm from Secretaría de Economía Federal, aquí en Mexico. So JICA sent me to the Mexican government so that I can implement this startup ecosystem strengthening project. So what I'm doing in JICA in this project is connect Japanese corporations with Mexican startups, because there are a lot of Japanese corporations here in Mexico, but they're not that involved into the Mexican startup ecosystem. So I'm trying to kind of like drag them into the startup ecosystem, because Japanese corporations, they're not that attentive to or they're not aware of the merit or the benefit of working with Mexican startups. So I'm kind of like functioning as an accelerator between Japanese corporations and Mexican startups. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this panel.
Good afternoon. My name is Teresa de Leon, and I am the country manager for Grid Exponential. You can find us as gridexponential.com, the website, and our small name is GridX. So we are a venture capital firm, but we also call ourselves a company building firm. And I will talk a little bit more about our model, mainly in the biotech sector. I have experience of 2 decades in innovation, entrepreneurship, funding new initiatives, mainly from the public sector. I work for the National Science, Technology, and Council in Mexico. And I'm betting for the next 2 decades of my professional life, keep doing that, but now from the private sector. So I would really like to exploit all the experience I have in the ecosystem to bring talent together to create the new climate tech challenge startups.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Maddie. I do basically manage partnerships and corporate investor relations at IndieBio. IndieBio is a part of SOSV, which is a global venture capital firm. We're focused on early stage deep tech across human and planetary health. We just closed our fifth fund. It's a $306 million fund, and about a third of that goes into sort of that initial check. So we work with companies sort of like at the earliest stages. We have lab space, we have sort of workshopping facilities, depending on what type of deep tech startup you are. And then the other 2/3 of that fund are going to go into follow-on financing rounds so we can continue to support these companies sort of through their life cycle. So excited.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm so excited for this conversation. So I want to start with you, Tere. What role do you think that incubators, accelerators, these early stage investment and ecosystem builders have, specific with the climate focused investment? What are you focusing on? What are you building? What do you think is the role in the ecosystem?
Thank you. Well, I definitely think that they're main importance. They're crucial for the ecosystem. They're crucial to really extending to get to reach, that talent that it's in the universities, talent that it's in other industries, talent that it's out there. So I think that their job is very crucial. I did a little bit of a search in this amazing platform from Enzo Cavalli that probably you all know, Startupable, and if you don't, you should visit it, startupable.com. And it has a map, a directory of many actors in the ecosystem. And I found 76 with a Latam, Latin America presence, 76 among incubators, accelerators, and company buildings. The majority of them are accelerators, and then a little bit less the company builders and the incubators. So I think that they are very important because they could be the first one-shot thing for entrepreneurs. Having said that, I would say that some of them, if they don't have money to invest in the startups and in the entrepreneurs, that might not have the ideal model. They might just be consultant services, and that might not be the ideal scenario for startups. And B, some of them that I saw also, they tend to be a little bit paternalistas, and also that's not good for entrepreneurs. So analyzing these 76, some of them don't exist anymore, but analyzing them, we can go through a huge matrix of variables, if we wanted to describe all of them. But I would say that the three main components that these actors have and that they should have is that, one, they should be empowering. They should be empowering, they should be able to empower entrepreneurs to take the risk, to go ahead, to work hard, to do the homework, to go out and talk, to go out and experiment. The second thing is that they need to connect entrepreneurs to the rest of the ecosystem, within Latin America or within the whole world. I think entrepreneur, and if it's related to climate change, it can not only be Latin America, so we have to be connected with the rest of the world. We have to see the market trends, we have to connect, we have to reach. One amazing example is IndieBio. I think that between IndieBio and Gridex, there's a great symbiosis where we reach to each other, kind of a sort of a pipeline for the next step. And the third one would be to get the money, to connect with the money, definitely, to connect with the money. Money is very important for entrepreneurs, especially in climate tech.
I wanted to double click on climate specific. Do you in Gridex focus on investing in climate tech startups, or as a core thesis of investment, or is it part of the thesis but not only with that focus?
So let's zoom in climate tech as well, because climate tech can be everything and nothing at the same time. So climate tech can be in all the extension of the innovation. GRIDEX primarily focuses on biotech, and biotechnology. What is also getting to be called deep tech. And I'll talk a little bit more about it in the second question, but we focus especially on biotech. So we do, and our model as a company builder is that we go out and reach for the talent. We look for talent, that's our model as a company building, in science. So we look for very good science. Very good science. So my main clients to begin with are universities and research centers. So we have mapped which are the best universities in Mexico and research centers that do the best biotech science. And now when I say biotech, also zooming in, we can find a little bit of engineering and technology as it's being called. We find medicine and health, but we also have biology. We see biotech, so you can zoom in, and you can find many expertise areas that are related to biotech, mainly life sciences. And then, as I said, we have mapped the best universities. You want me to tell you which are the best universities? Probably not. I don't want to leave out anybody. But then we also go out and look for the business profile people, for the entrepreneurs in business. And those are harder to find. Because I have mapped the 250,000 researchers in life sciences in all Latin America. But it's very difficult to map the MBAs or those business entrepreneurs that are willing to be the co-founders of the next biotech startups. So that's the first step in our model. We go out and reach and talk and find this talent and invite them to get to know us.
Amazing, thank you. Mari, I wanted to go ahead with you, and from your VC perspective, from your perspective as a VC, and I know that you focus a lot on biotech and deep tech in IndieBio, but what trends are you finding when you go out and look for a potential investment for a founder? What emerging trends are you finding in climate startups in Latin America?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'm probably going to have kind of a slightly biased take on this, or it's going to lean deep tech. But I would say probably not like an emerging trend necessarily, but biotech I think will continue to be kind of at the forefront here in Latin America for a couple of different reasons. I mean, and I guess just to throw out a stat on deep tech startups in general here, around 60% of Latam deep tech startups are biotech startups, so it's a pretty solid chunk already of the ecosystem. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Probably I missed parts of the other panels, but this was probably already spoken about a little bit around the fact that there are just such like abundant natural resources here in Latin America that don't really exist anywhere else in the world, and so kind of like as a product of that, that's kind of the direction that academic institutions have gone and research has gone, and so there's incredible talent in the biotech space too. I guess zooming in a little bit more on biotech specifically, some trends that I think will continue to grow, or sectors that will continue to be kind of become more robust, are around sort of the main areas that were priority areas for Latin American countries kind of in the Paris Agreement. So there's like food, security, agriculture, water, and climate resilience. I think we're kind of like the main four. And we actually have an amazing portfolio company sort of focused on a couple of those things. She might be in the audience here, but Microterra, so they do sort of, basically they grow lemna on wastewater coming from greenhouse, like agricultural greenhouses. And lemna is sort of this aquatic plant. It's duckweed is another word for it. And then they're able to harvest that while the lemna is cleaning the water. It's feeding off the nitrates and all the other bad stuff that would end up in kind of, in waste stream, in like the environment. And they're able to turn that into sort of high value ingredients for food and beverage. I guess more kind of areas that we're seeing increasing focus in to the point around upcycling is just like upcycling materials in different ways and more innovative ways. We talk a lot at IndieBio and SOSV broadly about sort of this second wave of industrial biomanufacturing that we're seeing. So, you know, I think there was like the first wave, very, very high CapEx requirements, very, very expensive to get off the ground, sort of like building novel bioreactors and facilities kind of like from the ground up. And now we're sort of focused more on and looking for companies that are upcycling waste, but in more efficient ways. So these companies are characterized by sort of like much lower CapEx requirements. They're able to kind of have a faster path to profitability and one that's scalable. They're making like consistent profits rather than just like kind of a one-off pilot or partnership. And yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to sort of like approach that like more efficient biomanufacturing. And I could sort of nerd out on that, but I don't want to take too much time.
We'll definitely circle back on the CapEx requirements challenges, because I think that for many biotech, deep tech, and other climate startups, that is a really big challenge, or that's at least like from an outsider perspective, it kind of looks like it's a big challenge in scaling. And that's actually my next question for you, Felix. I know that you can, from where you stand, you can see the ecosystem from a very bird's eye view. What are some of the key challenges that you're identifying that startups in the climate sector have, both in like the early stage and in the more like the scalability and scaling their operations?
Thank you, Regina. I have to put up a disclaimer. I've not been an entrepreneur, and I'm also not really and I'm also not a long-lasting expert on climate tech entrepreneurship. However, what I've been doing for the last over 10 years is finding ways to access climate finance from governments or multilateral funds and utilize them for the design of projects like Catalyst. I think my colleague here is doing something very similar. Find ways to utilize public climate funds for accelerators, incubators, and initiatives around strengthening ecosystems in general. In that mission, we have been working very, very intensively with the support of our colleagues from Tec de Monterrey and also the Foundation Climate Kick for over a year now to set up Catalyst, which has different programs and initiatives. And the most relevant here, I think, for the discussion is our accelerator, which has been launched in May and already is now about to finalize the first cohort with 10 startups participating. And from that experience, I can share some insights, what we have been picking up in terms of concerns or challenges. One is, in general, I think the ecosystem here in Latin America is still quite weak. That means there's limited space for exchange, for standardization of new products or services, norming, certification, but also we see certain lack of entrepreneurial skills that has to do with the educational system, with the research system here. The linkage between research and entrepreneurship is still deficient or could be improved. But we have also seen in the last month not only these technical capacities which have to be strengthened, but also soft skills, leadership in the entrepreneurs to make an idea actually work throughout the years. And yeah, it's more than an idea to have a successful startup. Beyond that, I like to stress three other factors that we have been seeing. One is a lack of awareness of already available funding sources. There's a mismatch between the entrepreneurs and the investor community, and with that I mean a broader community than VCs. There's so much money out there. I've been seeing that for a long time. It's the question how to in the right moment, in the right time, in the right size, make that available to entrepreneurs. And I there think we can really work together much more to facilitate access to finance in different very early stages. And lastly, I think important is this grant funding at the very beginning. This is why Catalyst is providing 15,000 euros for in the context of an incubator, a pre-acceleration program, and we provide 100,000 euro repayable grant for accelerator. Maybe I'll leave it here and happy to follow up on certain aspects.
Perfect. I actually do have a follow-up question. If for the founders here, what would be the main, maybe not the main, but one advice that you could give them for being able to tap that available funding and all of that capital that might not be connecting?
Well, I have to say, I think to know how to measure, communicate, and also sell a positive environmental or climate impact, call it ESG or call it sustainability strategy, is paramount and opens the doors to very different investor circles. I know VCs have different KPIs, they look at different metrics, and ESG is one aspect, but if you talk to DEG or IDB or GIZ, they do value a lot additional criteria that you can actually measure and sell and communicate very well to investors.
Perfect, thank you. Taiki, I wanted to go ahead with you. You mentioned that you're coming from both the Japanese, from JICA and the Secretaría de Economía, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask on how do you see those partnerships between the different players in the ecosystem roll out? What is the potential for those relationships, and what challenges are you finding in connecting those bridges?
All right. One of the biggest challenges is just an information asymmetry, meaning that Japanese companies don't know what kind of startups exist in Mexico and vice versa. Mexican startups they don't know what kind of Japanese corporations are looking for what kind of solutions. So as a government project, the priority is to break that information asymmetry. Anyways, the role of the government sector or the public sector is to build infrastructure, right? So that's what I'm trying to do right now. And there is a huge potential or white space in that because there's, for example, in this space, I don't see any like Japanese face or Asian faces. So I think I can play there. Oh, sorry. All right. Maybe I saw Nikkei there, but there is a huge gap in terms of information. So just providing them with an information could provide some value in this ecosystem. For me, this is where I think I can play a role in terms of that, yeah.
And how have you gone about connecting these entities? Like, do you start off with the companies telling you their problems and you go finding them Mexican solutions, or do you map out the Mexican ecosystem and connect them to the companies?
So what I have done so far is organizing like networking events and invite Japanese corporations and Mexican startups and let them have conversations there. But recently, I kind of facilitate like deal flows. Like Japanese corporations sometimes ask me about the startup information, so I connect them and have them discuss about their potential collaboration. Some of them go very well because Japanese corporations sometimes they don't speak Spanish. They don't speak English. They don't come to this kind of networking event. So they just don't know what's going on in the ecosystem here. So just connecting them could add some value. So that's what I'm doing right now. But little by little, yes, I have to focus more on the specific themes or specific technology area that first Japanese corporations are looking for and connecting them with Mexican and Latino startups. The other day, for example, I went to Guanajuato. As you know, in Guanajuato, there are a lot of Japanese car automakers like Toyota, from Toyota to Mazda. And there are a lot of factories, but they are looking for zero emission factories. So they are looking for climate tech startups. And this is what I have observed, for example. So from now, I came here last November, and so far I have focused on building ecosystems around Japanese corporations, but maybe from now, I have to deep dive into the demand of Japanese corporations and really like connecting those demand with Latino startups, and that's how probably I can evolve this project little by little.
Perfect, thank you. I wanted to go ahead with Tere and Mari. I know that you have co-invested in and you work a lot together. I wanted to get your thoughts on what main differences are you seeing between climate and biotech companies with regards to other software startups or other type of startups? Like, are there any key differences that as investors or as founders we need to make sure that we know that exists so that we can double down, or not, and we can treat them as any other companies? Do you see those differences and yeah, what do you think about that?
I mean, so yeah, like there are differences that definitely exist between kind of how you might look at a climate tech company, especially like a climate tech company working on deep tech versus a SaaS company. To be honest, I've never really looked at SaaS companies, so I don't.
I have. So if you focus on as an investor, what do you look for biotech companies, and
Yeah.
I'll do the differences in the SaaS companies.
Yeah, well, I mean, one difference that I know exists is just sort of that even with this sort of like second wave of like industrial biomanufacturing that I was talking about, like there still is going to inevitably be more like higher upfront costs most of the time with deep tech companies. So even if like their capex is super low and they're using really affordable kind of like materials or bioreactors or whatnot, or like feedstocks that are more cost effective, they are still going to run into expenses around research and development. They're developing something that's incredibly novel. Like they need to spend time doing that. They need to spend money, like, you know, paying the right people to help them do that. There's going to be expenses around regulatory approvals that don't necessarily exist as much in the SaaS space. So sometimes there's less of that, and depending on what vertical you're trying to tackle, there might be a minimal amount. So, you know, like if you're going for kind of like the cosmetics and personal care industry, that's going to be a lot easier to sell into versus like if you're going, you know, if you're developing a drug for the pharmaceutical space. But there still are always going to be those costs involved, and I think it's just understanding you know, how to best approach those costs and know it. Like basically you can de-risk the company in other ways, similar to maybe a SaaS company, or you can kind of like take the risk on the technology a little bit more, as long as you have conviction around the scientists behind it who are working on it and the business people behind it who are going to like take that technology to market. So I think those are probably, and then there's like the whole funding conversation. I think, you know, that's a big difference. There's not as much funding going into these companies at this point.
That's a great connection for Tere, because you were saying that you're looking for great scientists and great business people. So that I think that's a key. And from what I hear, there's also a longer time to market. No, the feedback periods are a bit longer.
It has to be patient money.
Exactly. How are you tackling that from the GridX perspective?
Well, before I answer that, I want to zoom out a little bit into climate, and I think you were talking about climate is just one of the tipping points. So I think we should upgrade the conversation and actually talk about the planetary limits. Climate change is only one of them. So there's another 8, so there's 9 that have to do with water use, with land use, with new chemicals that we are throwing into the environment, like plastics. But also we have, those are the main ones. And as March of the 2024, according to the Center of Resilience, the Stockholm Center of Resilience, we already have surpassed 6 of them. So we are endangered, like literally endangered. So we're doomed, because I love that word. We're definitely doomed. So
It definitely raises attention.
yes,
Eco anxiety.
yes. So it's not climate, it's about planetary limits. So the second thing I want to say is like, well, how biotech contributes to that conversation. And according to McKinsey, this is a report of 2021, about 60% of the inputs that any industry in the world uses can be substituted by bio inputs. So that's huge. We're talking about markets of trillions of dollars, which means that, and again, according to this study, biosolution can come in 4 main types. So one would be bio robots, the other one could be bioprocesses, the other one is bioinformatics, all data, and the other one is biomolecules. So, and then I'm coming back to Gridex. Gridex is looking deep science solutions in any of those fields, in any of those types. So it can be informatics, so you are dealing with live organisms, right? And getting data from how they work, basically. Combined with artificial intelligence right now, there's no limit of what bio can do in the next decade. And definitely bio is our solution. And any of these 4 type of technologies will have an impact in our matrix production. Because as I was saying, 60% of every input can be substituted. And when I say input in any industrial process, I'm talking about everything we see here in this room. The table, our clothes, our shoes, our glasses, our optics, our everything, our technologies, obviously, all of that, 60% of all of those inputs can be substituted by bio. Okay, so the question was, what does Gridex look for? So we actually don't go out looking for startups. We go out looking for talent, as I said. And we bring them together and we start the conversation from zero. What do we look in science? It has to be very good science. How do you know that? Well, we do our business intelligence or our science intelligence. We have a very good group of scientists within Gridex, and we're obviously monitoring markets, right? So what is the next thing? What is happening? What science is already obsolete? What science is leading? The talent that we talk to is generally doctors, PhDs, in any of the fields I mentioned before, and senior science, because to get to the good deep science, people have had to spend at least, 10 years, 12 years doing research, from basic to applied research. Now, it's very difficult for senior researchers to go out and start a company because they have tenure, because they are in their comfort zone. So what we invite them to do is to bring in the new PhDs that are, coming out. So the data in Mexico is that we are graduating, Mexico's universities and research centers are graduating about 2,000 new PhDs every year. Where do they go? So the universities have to be teaching entrepreneurship because they have to be the next, solutions for the world. So we look for that talent, and as I said, the business, and we are being called actually the Tinder in the startup ecosystem because they bring them together, we put them to work, and eventually some will do some matching. And if they do the match, if they have good science, if the business entrepreneurs have the talent to accelerate, so those are the 2 dimensions that we look, deep science and acceleration, then we do our first round investment.
Okay, amazing.
That was a long question.
Yes,
Answer.
May I respond quickly to the first
Yes,
comment? First, maybe a comment. I think you would be the Grindr and not the Tinder, giving your name. But you said we should look at all the planetary boundaries that are out there. And I agree there are a lot of challenges that we have to tackle in parallel. Nevertheless, and maybe for VCs, it's also climate is just one vertical among others, among various. But from a societal standpoint, I think we need to focus and keep things simple. And in the climate space, especially in the mitigation area, we do have very clear international agreements. We have clear metrics how to measure. We will hopefully soon have a carbon price, which also monetizes reduction or emissions. And we have a very clear timely target when we have to become neutral. We have 30 years maximum. If we try to include all these aspects, biodiversity and soil degradation, etc., we will be sitting here in 10 years and we still haven't found the solutions, I think, and scale them at a level that is necessary to really respond to these global challenges. So I'm a big fan if we have accelerators, if we have incubators, we do focus on certain measurable targets that guide us in the selection of startups, in the performance-based payment, etc. Thank you.
I think there was a response. If you,
I have a response.
Maybe.
Do you have a response?
this is
Just
the
a quick
debate
one.
now.
Just a
It's
quick
not.
one. There is talent out there to tackle the 9 limits, the 9 planetary limits. There is talent, but we have to bring them into the conversation. And also, and I'm going to go back to universities. Universities have to let go and empower the next generation of entrepreneurs because they are the ones who are actually going to work into the applied science and find the solutions. Solutions out there, money's out there. We just need to reach out and find a way to transform that into reality. But I agree with you. I mean, we have to keep conversation simple. But we as a deep tech fund, it's hard to keep it simple.
I'm gonna change a little bit my last question to you, Felix and Taiki. From a government perspective, and from all of these international agreements that you mentioned, Felix, there seems to be a clear plan and idea of where to focus. Where are you seeing that the actual impact and the execution of those plans is getting faltered in reaching that neutrality by 2030? Sorry for changing the plan, but you started.
Well, there's a Paris Agreement which has clearly defined $100 billion of public finance per year for climate finance. And I think that has been reached lately with delay. But we do need much more funding, especially from the private sector, to get where I think they're talking about $4 or $5 trillion a year of financing only for the climate space. So there's a huge gap that has to be closed in the next years, there's no doubt, and certainly the public sector cannot increase funding to that level. So there is an urgent need for collaboration and inclusion of the private sector with all its forms into that discussion and the funding process. I can speak for the German government. I mean, GIZ is 100% in ownership of the German government. We have a strong commitment, I think, to assign above $6 billion a year to developing and emerging countries. Don't correct me, don't take me on that 6 billion, but I think it's around 6 or even 7. And we are actually doing that, and we are doing that through multilateral funding schemes like the World Bank, GEF, GCF, but also through a lot of bilateral projects that we are, for example, executing here in Mexico, with the hope to leverage more capital the actors in that. To give you a short example, in Catalyst, we are looking to leverage at least 15 million euros of private capital out of
It wasn't me, I promise.
out of the initial investments that we do with the grants for 30 startups. So if you're a private investor, you're looking for attractive investment-ready startups, come look me up, check me out. Also colleagues, Yoshiko is here, Valeria is here, and other colleagues from the Catalyst Initiative, which can help you with that. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if you want to add something. We have about 5 minutes
right.
left, so but I want to give you.
So again, from Japanese, like JICA's perspective, JICA traditionally has been focusing on like big infrastructure projects like solar panel. Here in Mexico, in Monterrey, in 2020 or 21, they financed a big solar panel project there. But due to the policies change, so it was canceled. So we probably focus on climate tech, like a small project, but we can invest as an LP. We can invest in climate techs. So the difficult thing about public sector is that it is always subject to the public policy, which is decided by the democratically elected government, and we don't know when that policy is going to change. So, but at least JICA has been focusing on that. JICA's one of the strong focus is, of course, the climate change and focus on financing the climate change related project. In the past, it was a big infrastructure project, but recently we're focusing on climate related startups. So I hope JICA has like two arms. One is financing and investment. The other is technical cooperation. I am in the side of technical cooperation, but we of course collaborate closely. But I hope as a startup advisor, I hope JICA invest more or dedicate more resource on the startup financing side, because those big infrastructure projects are like really subject to public policy change.
Definitely. I wanted to highlight also what you mentioned, Felix, about the need for private investment. I remember we had a conversation with a person from Erdes from Andrea. I think I don't know if she's here or she's participating later, but she mentioned that corporations need to understand the risk that not investing in climate solutions has for their business. It's not charity. It's investing in the sustainability of your business even. But yeah, so if you wanted to add something, that's fine. We have some space for questions from the audience. I don't know if I'm going to be very strict and not allow. This is not a question, more like a comment. A question starts with a question mark. But if there is any questions, happy to hear you guys. We convinced so many people to invest and start a company in climate. Over there.
Thanks. I will let anyone who wants to answer this one. We are coming from a failure of the VC strategy right now in the kind of Silicon Valley, this west of Mexico, the world. A lot of investors, they don't trust right now in the new startups because it has not taken off, and there are not many exits as supposed to be. And right now, we as green tech startups are being told that we need to focus on give our pitches like the traditional digital startups. But most of us, we are not digital. We have technology, but we cannot wait, as Teresa was telling, 10 years for our technologies to be proven. So we're kind of in a lack of, nobody wants to try, but nobody wants to invest, but they want everything to be great and grow 10x. What is your opinion on the next stage of green tech investments? How it needs to be evolving in order just to not reach the 2030 climate breakdown that we are right now. Thank you.
Gracias.
I mean, one thing I think I'm constantly pushing for is for more corporate involvement and earlier, whether that's like kind of from the investment side of things or on, working on a partnership together or both. I think at this point, like, it's not, at least, I mean, maybe I'm kind of naive in saying this, but I think that with corporates, like, majority of them are trying to engage with startups in some way, but it's a matter of like how well they're doing that. And so I encourage, I'm always encouraging and offering kind of advice from myself and folks at SOSV. We work with a lot of corporate partners and have quite a few LPs that are kind of strategically invested into the fund because they want that early visibility into sort of what deep tech companies could be a good potential partner for them. And we've seen some, very early on iterations of this sort of like CVC model or just like innovation branch of a company. And then we've seen ones that are like incredibly robust and have like a great framework and buy-in from leadership and connectivity to all of the different business units that could be leveraging these technologies and sort of a central like unifying force, sort of a nucleus. Like I think there are certain things that corporates can do in order to better support green tech, and I think they have a prerogative to do so, and they're not going to meet their commitments unless they start doing more of it. So, yeah.
Thank you. Anyone wants to add something?
Yeah. So, and this is GridX's vision. We do believe that we need a transformational change across the whole industry. And the only way that we're going to do that is changing the status quo, and that needs time. That needs trying to change all the industrial machinery into something more sustainable. So that needs time. So funds like GridX, we are betting on that deep transformational change that has to happen. So it is very important for us and for the startups that are in our portfolio to be able to, these startups, to reach to the next round, follow-on investments from other funds, from other VCs. So I invite all of the VCs that are in here to look back and also have a little bit of patient money, not expecting immediate returns, but to put a bet on these transformational startups. I call them moonshots. And the last is definitely CVC. They are the ones that have the production matrix, and they have to turn around and look on what's going on, right?
Thank you. One last question over there.
Hey, I'm Alexei from New Ventures. We're seeing this gap that you guys mentioned between funds and startups. So here we're at New Ventures starting this new arm of like investment banking to bridge this gap. And I guess my question to you guys would be, have you tried investment banking and are you willing to pilot something together?
As LPs, you mean?
Sure.
As LPs?
No, like with funds to connect with founders and vice versa. So investment banking, kind of like sell side or buy side to kind of like bridge the gap, information gap, or...
My experience that bank is not necessarily patient money. So that's where I...
Investment banking, more like, or like transactional services or investment banking, just connecting with something that you see at later stages, but you normally don't see at earlier stages. Like someone that kind of like bridges the gap.
Well, I think that's a key question because here in Mexico, I heard that I think it's that the exit is very difficult, and M&A could be a key. So I want to create an ecosystem where, for example, Japanese corporations can buy or M&A later stage startups, and that can provide an exit opportunity more here. And that could be one of the solutions to revitalize the ecosystem here. So I'm thinking about doing both, like acceleration for the early stage startups, but at the same time, breaking the information asymmetry between like later stage startups and corporates. I think that's a good key point, I think.
Thank you. Great question. I don't know, last comments to add about that? I don't want to cut you off.
No, just saying, I think GSZ has not been famous for working in investment banking, so we should be careful to go into sectors we have no experience, but we have an MOU between GIZ and New Venture Group, I think, for some time, and we are very interested to find or establish new mechanisms, financial mechanisms, to facilitate this kind of post-acceleration finance for startups. And I'm very open to discuss your ideas there.
Yeah, I guess the last comment I'll add on that is I think that for most early stage funds or just like venture in general, it's sort of like counter to like our, the return that we're looking to make. If a company exits too early or is acquired too early, then we're not really, it's not helping helping our case. But at the same time, recognizing that right now, it might be the best course for one of our startups is to get absorbed by a larger entity that will be able to, and if that's the only option, if they can't like partner on something, if the corporate wants to just kind of absorb them, maybe that's the best way for this technology to still exist and be deployed at a larger scale. But I know that there are some GPs within SOSV that are working on a strategy around that, so happy to connect more about that and connect you with the right people.
Perfect. Thank you everyone for your attention. Please, a big round of applause for our guests, our panelists.